Welcome back to the Apartment Dealer Show. I'm Kris, the Apartment Dealer, and this is where we bring you the resources, the information, and the network of professionals that will assist you as you build your financial legacy in multifamily properties. Today, we're actually finishing up the final segment of what has become a 4-part series of an 8-unit property that I personally purchased, remodeled, or did substantial improvement to over the course of the last 12 months. Now, why did it take 12 months? We actually purchased this property March of 2020. And if you live on Earth, you know that for the last 18 months now or so, that there's been this health concern. So as we're closing escrow on the property and beginning renovations, our state here in California issued a stay-at-home order, a state of emergency. So needless to say, that created a roadblock, and the project took much longer than we first anticipated. Now, given the timeline, many would assume, well, that only spells catastrophe. Here you are purchasing a property, we have this global pandemic, your state of which you own in issues a stay-at-home order, in other words, go inside, lock the doors, and here you are trying to remodel. And not just remodel one unit, but an entire complex where you have tenants involved. Well, what do you do with the tenants? Because you have to vacate units when they're being told to stay at home. So long story short, it took us about 12 months start to finish. And now we have completely finished the substantial improvement, the complete remodel of the entire building. And we're going to dissect the financials today. Was the energy and time and risk involved of this project, was it all worth it? Now that we have our final numbers, now we know what our rate of return is. That's what we're going to look at here today. Now, a quick note on substantial improvement. In California, since January 1st of 2020, we now have statewide rent control. Every city in the state of California has rent control. And some cities even have their own ordinance where they have tougher, stricter limitations than what the state has outlined. So just one more time, because I still get this question of, hey, Kris, does my city have rent control? Every city is under AB 1482, which is statewide rent control. So we're not going to outline all the points of that because we have videos already where we've interviewed real estate lawyers, eviction specialists to outline all this for you. But substantial improvement, that is what you utilize given the laws of today, as we record this June of 2021, where you can vacate units if you're still going to do substantial improvements after the fact. And that's the premise we took here with this property. Now, the most recent video that we recorded was with Michael Brennan, where he dissected AB 1482, SB 91, the ins and outs. The link will be here and all the information you'll need to understand that. Now, the name of the game in multifamily, from my vantage point, is there's got to be cash flow, appreciation, and tax savings. For the amount of time and energy, and especially capital that we have invested into properties, it must kick out on the other end cash flow, appreciation, and tax savings. Now, keep in mind, I'm a realtor by day, okay? My mainstay business is representing investors, landlords, in the purchase and sale of multifamily properties every day. This is what we instruct our clients, is that the goal, which overarching we call a financial legacy, but maybe more specifically, we would point to cash flow, appreciation, tax savings. We want to be checking off these 3 boxes, especially as we're looking at a substantial improvement project. And that's what we're going to be asking ourselves throughout this video is, are we able to today have said we checked each of those 3 boxes? Now, when we analyze the property, now this property was on the open market, listed on the multiple listing service. I didn't even represent myself as the buyer's agent. I could have, but I allowed the agent who had the listing to represent us as our agent. And the property was listed for $1.4 million. Now, so as we're analyzing this, okay, 8 units, 5 are vacant, purchase price of 1.4, but we didn't believe that the price would stop there. We believed that it would be a multiple bid, and that's exactly what it ended up happening. And so as we're competing, we end up winning the bid and we pay $1,485,000. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why in the world would Kris, the apartment dealer, overpay for a property, pay more than the list price? Isn't the definition of a deal that you have to get something from the seller, a credit, a reduction in price? Isn't the goal to grind the seller down into the ground, and then you know you've done a good deal or gotten a good deal as a buyer? Nothing could be farther from the truth. And day in and day out, I see investors sidestep good opportunities because, well, if they don't get even something simple like $500, they feel like they've been done some type of injustice. And in the grand scheme of things, that's not the idea. The idea here is to run a financial analysis. And if you have to bid up, and in the end, having paid a higher price, it still fits the analysis, well, then that's the direction you go. That's what we did here. And again, I'm being totally transparent with all the financials so that you can decide for yourself, did this project make sense? Okay, we pay $1,485,000. Now, when we analyzed it, we said, okay, we're gonna take on this project, and this was pre-COVID. So we're thinking about this without understanding the limitations that were gonna be before us in the coming months. But we said, look, it's gonna be worth about $1.9 million by the time we're done with the improvements. And the rental rates, the market rental rates for these units, once they've been fully remodeled, is gonna be about $1,425. So if we can hit those two markers, that the building at least appraises for $1.9 million, and we're able to put new tenants in place at $1,425, this is a win. That was assuming the remodel as we first envisioned it. But as you know, as you dig into a project, new ideas come up. We began to see more light at the end of the tunnel in terms of more potential cash flow. And so we added additional items as we were going through the process. And especially over the, like I mentioned, it took 12 months. So over that amount of time, we began to reevaluate and added more items that added to the cost, but actually increased where we were headed. Now, what did the remodel consist of? Now, I mentioned this is the final segment of a 4-part series. I would have you go, and we're gonna link to those videos here. I would have you go to the first 3 videos where I actually walked the project with the contractor, discuss what we're gonna be doing in each of the units. And you see some of the units actually demoed to basically the walls. And then as we began to put in some of the finishing products and what colors we used and what finishing products we used, that's all there. I'll give you a quick synopsis. We replaced all the electrical, which consisted of a sub panel in each of the units, new Romex wiring to the plugs and switches, and Decora style plugs and switches, plus recessed lighting throughout. Of course, we remodeled the kitchens and bathrooms. Tenants seem to gravitate towards kitchens and bathrooms, so we put a lot of time and energy there. So, new vanity, new cabinets, new fixtures, new appliances, tiled showers, because in today's day and age, who would use a fiberglass surround sound? So, fully tiled showers, the works. Okay, new kitchen, new baths. The floors, the living room, hallway, and bedroom actually had real wood floors. This was my first time. I always wanted to buy something that had real wood floors. And so we went through the process of sanding them, actually bleaching them to get a better color, and finishing them. So we went through the expense of that. All new windows, new exterior and interior paint. This 8-unit property actually is 2 structures, 4 units in each structure. Well, each of those structures has a common staircase. So in that staircase, each of the steps and the landings are real wood. So we had to refinish that. And we also added accent tile to each of the stairs because we knew it would add to the appeal of the property. We put a split AC and heat unit in the living room, so split units. We went with tankless water heaters, and to understand why we did that, I would refer you to the previous videos. We outlined about what was taking place with the space. The carport area only had room for 6 cars. Well, this is 8 units. And we actually were able to reconfigure the carport without changing the structure itself, and now it fits 8 cars. And we reworked the parking area so that now there's actually 7 open spaces as well. That's a big deal because One, in many cities that you are familiar with, parking is an issue. For a one bedroom, you might get one parking on site, but now we're actually able to, at least for 7 of the tenants, we actually are able to offer 2 parking spaces. That lends itself to more rent down the road. So now how much did we spend? The unit remodels themselves were about $20,000 a piece. The staircases, $5,000. The exterior paint, $15,000. The carport, the reconfiguration, plus we ran electrical to the carport for lighting, $17,000. The AC units, $10,200. The concrete, $34,500. The appliances, $5,900. And then we have all the extras, because as you know, when you dig into a project, even if you're just remodeling your home or anything, there's always change out orders. You get new ideas. You start changing, finishing items. So everything in total, including all the change out orders, and you find a leak here and there, we came to a grand total of capital improvements of $283,930. $283,930. So we purchased the property for $185,000 per unit, which is one of the 4 major markers when you're evaluating the value of a property, right? Price per unit. And so if we take all the capital improvements and lump it into how much we paid for the property, which really is not the best way to do it, but for argument's sake, and let's just lump it in. $283,000, lump that in. So actually we're into it now for $220,000 per unit. So you say, well, hold on. At the outset of the project, you assumed it was going to be worth $1.9 million. That would mean the property would be worth $237,000 per unit. You're into it for $220,000, so there's a $17,000 differential. Yeah, that's good. You're not upside down, right? But is that enough percentage? Well, let's continue here. So when we purchased the property, because it had 5 vacant units, and because we needed to close quickly, we actually obtained financing, private financing. Some of you might call it a hard money loan. So now, once we were done with the project, came time to put permanent commercial financing in place. The property, when it was appraised by the new commercial lender, appraised for $2,170,000. That is $271,000 per unit. So that box that we're trying to check of appreciation, there it is. We overshot our $1.9 million goal. And yes, we did spend a little bit more on the remodel than we first anticipated. But we never thought that the property would appraise for this much, especially in a market where, and these are 1-bedroom apartments, all 8 units. For comparison, buildings in this market that are all 2-bedroom units maybe sell for $250,000 to $265,000 per unit at the recording of this video. Our little 1-bedroom units appraised for $270,000 per unit. Well, why is that? Obviously, in part, it's the capital improvements. But the capital improvements beget higher rents. Remember I said our goal was $1,425. Today, we rent the units for $1,695. That's a 19% bump above what we assumed we'd get for the units. So if you've watched any of my previous videos, and I'm always touting that typically we get about 15% above market in terms of our rents, well, here we're getting 19% above market. Okay, so what's the final tail of the tape? Okay, so our down payment when we purchased the property was $370,000. The capital improvements, again, were $283,930. So my money, Kris's money, in the deal is $653,930. The new loan, through the refinance, we actually qualified for $1,410,500, $1,410,500, based upon the appraised value, which means we cashed out, right, put back into our pockets $296,000, which now means left in the deal is about $357,000. How did I get there? Again, I'm into it for about $653,000. I cash out through the refinance $296 that goes in my pocket, but left in the deal $357,000. But we also had the cost of carrying the loan. This was a private loan, okay? And typically private loans are interest only. So the total expense of carrying that loan, when we say carrying, that's slang for the mortgage payments along the way, was $71,000. So in total, still in the property today, of my own personal money, is $428,000. So then how do you calculate your cash on cash return? Today, our net income is $54,000. Now, when I say net income, I'm taking the gross income. Remember, the highest rents are $1,695 in place today. You minus out your property taxes, your insurance, your utilities, put some money aside for repairs and maintenance reserves. Okay, after you take, that's your net, right? That's the money that I can use to go down the Sprouts and feed my children with. Okay, is $54,000. Well, if I'm into the deal for $428,000 and my net income is $54,000, my rate of return, cash on cash, is 12.6%. This is in a market where investors pat themselves on the back if they get something close to 5%. We're now running at 12.6%. So now we check that second box of cash flow. We checked appreciation, building way overshoots what we anticipated in terms of value. Now we have cash flow above average rate of return. And the third box, tax savings. Of course, with all the capital improvements that we've made in the property, those are items that will be depreciating over time. That means more tax savings to us. Okay, boys and girls, so what did we learn? There's 3 boxes we want to check: cash flow, appreciation, tax savings. This project fits perfectly into that scenario. But the point being is, how do we maximize either what we currently own in terms of cash flow, appreciation, and that means improving the property from within, or if we sell and buy it and do a 1031 exchange and buy a new project, what can we do to build the value, increase the cash flow, especially in light of rent control? Bruce Norris, who you've seen on our show before, investor extraordinaire, gave me this term of tiebreaker, or not gave me, but taught me about this term of a tiebreaker. I never had thought about real estate in this way. Tiebreaker, what do we mean? So now this property becomes a tiebreaker in a future sale. Meaning if there's other buildings for sale on the auction block at the same time we were to decide to put our building up for sale, we win, we break the tie. They choose us, they pay us, and they pay us above market. Why? Because of the quality and condition of the project, which brought a certain tenant base, which brought above market rents. We break the tie there. In terms of the units themselves, while we hold the project, our units are tiebreakers when a tenant is out there in the open market looking for a new place to live. It happens time and time again when they come in our units. And mind you, we rented these units during the pandemic. So, even better when the times are not, so out of the ordinary. But even during 2020, this is when we're renting those units, or at least about 2/3 of them. People walk in, my gosh, we have not seen any units like this. And right there, we break the tie, they choose us, and they're able to rationalize or justify, I should say, paying us $200, $250 more than the guy down the street is asking for, right? So as humans, we think we choose rationally, but really we choose emotionally. They get wrapped up in the project. They get wrapped up in the unit, the color scheme, it's modernized. 2 cars, right? They can park 2 cars because typically our tenant base, 2 working professionals, right? So they each have a space. One of them doesn't have to park on the street. We break the tie. Another byproduct of going through substantial improvements is the tenant base that you end up with in the end. Now, we'll rent to anyone, but typically who's attracted to our units are this millennial generation, which we've talked about on previous videos, where it's a single working professional, maybe 2 working professionals. Maybe most of them don't have children yet. They choose not to have children, which means they have more money to spend, and they're willing to put that money into your pockets as a landlord if you have a nice unit to offer. So with that tenant base, then comes less management headaches. I do not have the time, given my real estate business and working with investors every day with their investments, to be messing with my properties every other day, to be taking calls day and night. I just don't have that type of time. I'm also a father, And so I want to spend time with my children, right? So with my properties, and I'm not bragging here, I just want to share with you the reality of what's the end result. I maybe have to visit once a quarter, if that, just to make sure no one picked up the building and stole it. I mean, really. Because keep in mind, once you've done these substantial improvements, how much maintenance is there really on the property? And when you have a tenant base that actually has pride of ownership and they have a vested interest in your unit, there's not much quarreling on the property or a destruction of the units. It leads to ease of management. So we check those 3 boxes: cash flow, appreciation, tax savings. Listen, if we're going to put up the type of capital that it takes to buy multifamily properties, the time involved, the risk, especially here in the state with rent control and everything else, all the new legislation, the risk involved, and the energy. On the other side of that then better be cash flow, appreciation, tax savings. That's what we encourage our clients to have as their goal as they're building their financial legacy. Many landlords are still working professionals, or they own a business and they're buying multifamily so that it'll serve as retirement sometime in the future. Others are already retired. Their multifamily properties represent the vast majority of their retirement income. In either case, more income means a greater standard of living. That's what we hope these videos, they move you in that direction, to understand how to build up your portfolio, how to build the value from within, how to build up the cash flow, how to increase the appreciation for yourself and for your heirs to come. I hope this video was informative. I hope it serves you as the landlord. Keep in mind, these videos, first and foremost, are to serve our clients, to give them the information they need, sometimes the believability, the resources, whatever it may need, so that they can work on their personal portfolios. Now, those of you that are watching on YouTube and Facebook that are yet to be clients, I hope it serves you as well. But I'm not looking to become some HGTV star. I don't know that they would take me. That's not the premise here. The premise is to show you the reality, not a reality show, but the reality of being a landlord, of being an investor, specifically here in California, more specifically in Los Angeles and San Bernardino and Orange counties and Riverside County. What does the geography look like in terms of multifamily here? What does it look like to be an investor? What is it like in the day in and day out of the management? Please give this video a like, share it with other landlords that you may know. Subscribe to our channel. This way, when we do release new videos, of course, you're alerted and you receive those videos there. And please share a comment. Give us feedback. That helps us direct future coming shows. What is it that would be helpful to you, the viewer? Please share those below. And until next time, Kris German, the apartment dealer, wishing you positive cash flow, tenants who behave, and much protection from Uncle Sam. Till next time.